Alright, hey, aloha guys. Just wanted to do a video on some arrow setups. We're gonna go over my hunting arrow setup and my wife's arrow setup. So kind of like a short draw guy like me and even shorter draw lady or maybe kid setup. So stick tuned and let's get into it. Okay guys, we're gonna start with my hunting arrow first. Pull them out of the quiver here. I shoot both fixed blade and a mechanical. I'll get into that later. And I've got two different fletching variations, but to go over these arrows, I think we'll just go from backwards to front and kind of go with that. So to start, let's see if I can find it here. To start, see if she can focus on it. I'm shooting a Easton Axis arrow. Can you get that? It's a 340 spine. It's a 26.5-inch length. So to pick your shafts, the first thing I would say is to look at the arrow spine chart, get to learn how to read one. I can do a video on that later. But a little more advanced would be something like Archer's Advantage or something like that, where you can customize what's going on the back or on the front of your arrow. So I do use that, and it'd be a long detailed video to get into, so I'm not gonna go too far there. But what I would say is just make sure you're shooting an arrow that's stiff enough. In a hunting scenario, when you shoot arrows that are a little bit too soft, you'll find tuning issues, and especially when you want to shoot a fixed blade broadhead, you're gonna get, I just find in my experience that you get worse grooves, and it's just harder to tune a fixed blade with an arrow that's underspined. But going back to front, so Easton Components, so it's a Easton X knock for the 5mm axis. And the thing I gotta say about knocks is you want quality knocks. You don't want knocks that can't spin freely on the string. Decent knock fit so the arrow leaves the string well. This is the interface to your string and to you and to the arrow. So if these are poor, and I'm not gonna mention names, but I've experimented with a lot of arrows and I've had some poor components as well. So you definitely don't want to scrimp on these, and it's a whole topic in itself. And quite honestly, I don't think maybe the popular hunting media goes over these things. It's something more the target archer related would know better. So definitely, if you're looking for opposing opinions, look at some of the professional target archers or people who compete in target, because we have to get into a more strict accuracy tolerance than hunting does. Hunting animal kill size like this or something, and targets, we're trying to get as accurate as we can. So take that into consideration. So moving forward, I've got two different kinds of fletching types. So this is a AE Max Stealth. It's a 2.7 inch or something like that, and this is a 360 flex fletch vane. I had a video some years ago when I was shooting a lot different and stuff, and really testing things about arrow sound and hunting arrow noise and axis deer ducking the arrow. So at the time, I believe I was shooting flex fletch and a blazer, and the blazer is a really loud arrow, very popular arrow, works for everybody, but it's quite noisy because it's very tall. So in that video, I think you can hear that the flex fletch, which is a little more sleek design, not as tall, is a bit more quiet. It has been my experience that with axis or deer or animals that are just pretty jumpy, that a lot of times it's the sound of the arrow coming at them. We can hunt year-round in Hawaii, and I've spent a lot of time even sneaking up to axis deer and not shooting at them, just deer I wasn't going to shoot at, and kind of just creating an abrupt noise, like just clapping my hands and expecting them to duck from that kind of thing, and they don't. Most of them typically just look. But when you shoot at them, of course, they duck or they spin around. So I really think that they hear that thing coming. So a good quiet vane is important for those kinds of animals. But beyond that, I guess being accurate. So the most importance with the vanes first, obviously, is the accuracy. Can you get consistent group sound range? And the only thing I can say about that is definitely test out all different types. I have two different types here. As far as hunting, I've been using the Maccell for quite a while. But I'm still getting a lot of deer ducking my arrows. My arrows don't go very quick. The overall arrow weight of this is 440 grains, a 26.5-inch draw at 70 pounds. So arrows going about maybe the low 260s to the mid 260 feet per second. Not very quick. I tend to notice that the Maccell produces a slightly lower pitch sound compared to other vanes. So compared maybe to my flex fletch, might be a little higher pitch, less volume sound. But yeah, so I've been using this, still getting a lot of ducking. It's quiet as it is already, so I think going forward I'm going to be going back to the tried and true flex fletch. I shot this when I was a little kid. I mean, in high school, flex fletch was around. It was like the thing to have, and kind of strange I find myself going back to it, so I'll be kind of using that. And how, you know, so I said test, shoot them all and see which group's the best, but in the course of that you also have to decide what's on the front of your arrow will decide what you put on the back. So these are slightly larger vanes. I would say, you know, with the mechanical you can get away with smaller vanes, and definitely smaller than these two, but I don't always shoot a mechanical. I do like to carry a fixed blade broadhead, and with a fixed blade I prefer, you know, this probably be the smallest I would go even for a slick trick like this, or I prefer a slightly larger vane. If I was gonna only exclusively shoot mechanicals, that would probably be on game that are smaller, require more accuracy, maybe even more distant shots in the wind, then, you know, I could reduce the size of this vane. But being all-purpose here, I elect to have a larger vane. Moving forward, we talked about the shaft, but get into the front of the arrow. So talk about the fixed blade first. A fixed blade is a slick trick 100 grain standard broadhead. It's a 1-inch cutting diameter 4 blade. Oh, I forgot one more thing. People want to know sometimes the angle. So helical or straight offset. So if you guys can see down the arrow, you can get a sense of what the angle is. It's the same on both of these. So it's about, if I had to measure it, somewhere between the 2 and a 2.5 degree helical offset. It's a left clamp, and I didn't do arrow clocking or anything those people talk about, but I just have left because I shoot left on my stick, on my recurve and stick bow, and I just didn't want to buy another clamp. So this is what I have. I've tried a lot of helical, like a lot of popular guys on YouTube you might see got a ton of helical on them. Me personally, I don't see any accuracy gain or difference. But I do see if you were to go straight, that does degrade. So I would say, you know, anywhere between 2 to 3 degrees, pretty good happy medium there. I've shot even 1 degree offset. As long as you got a good tune and a properly sized fletch for your broadhead, it's not going to be a big deal. But I'm at 2.5 roughly. Going back to the front, so slick trick, I like to I carry both because, well, in the past I've only recently moved to the Sever for my mechanical. I used to shoot a Rage Hypodermic plus P. It's a good broadhead. I like it. It's just the plastic collar and the blade sticking out, as you know, it can be a little cumbersome when you're stalking. You can get a cotton brush and pull the blade out. So I do like this because it's a little more sleek. There's nothing to catch, and it does use a rubber band system, but it's a little more sleek, and you know, it actually does group slightly better just because of the reduced blade surface. I do stalk, but what I do like to do is when I'm walking and stalking in the bushes and having to move around, very dynamic situation, I like to have the fixed blade on my bow. In a lot of cases I've had to, you know, when you get really close to game, sometimes you can't, you don't always get the ideal shot. And for me, with a short draw, penetration does matter. So, you know, if it's going to be 50 yards and under and I'm stalking, I definitely like to have the fixed blade on. And you know, if it's through a little bit of brush or the angle isn't just right, I know I can get the penetration I need with this for my short draw. Now if you're a longer draw guy, you can shoot a heavy arrow and you can probably get better penetration if you with a mechanical than compared to my setup. But it's typically what I like to do. And if I have time to make a longer shot, or it's windy, some little more technical shot, then I will switch to the mechanical broadhead, especially if it's over 50 yards. I'm definitely going to be switching, but in those cases I generally have a lot of time to, you know, take my fixed blade off the string, put the mechanical on, and go make my shot from there. So it's kind of part of my process to stop and think about the longer shots and just go ahead and take them and really look at the situation for those things. So that's that. And the big topic is, what about front and center? How much percent front and center should we have? How much point weight? Inside of this arrow is a 50 grain brass insert. Easton makes 50 grain and 75 grain hidden inserts for these. I'm running a 50 grain brass. So all told, it's 150 grains up front. Actually 155, because if you look real closely, I do use the BAR, the broadhead adapter ring. It makes the front of the arrow a bit stronger. Without it, I've split arrows. With these, I haven't split any here. I mean, of course they snap when you smack something real hard, but it seems to toughen up the front of the arrow pretty good. So it's 150 grains up front. I think front and center people talk about FOC, so if you were to balance the arrow, say like the midpoint of the arrow is probably somewhere around here, or say. So the difference between here and here, how much percent forward is it of the overall length, and that's front to center. Generally speaking, for my hunting arrows, I like to be somewhere between 9 to 15% tops. I don't get into the extreme front and center stuff. I can go into a huge video about those. I've played with that. My recurve arrows are kind of more extreme front and center just because I need to break down the spine. But for hunting, I've shot a lot of point weight and all different point weights, and I'd say, you know, anywhere between 120 to about 150 is where I like to be. 175 if I'm going to get real heavy. Any heavier than that, you can, if your spine ain't right, you can get some real wonky stuff and hard to tune. So it's a setup there. Same with my mechanical, it's no different. So all told, for 140 grains, Easton Axis 5mm 340 spine. Love this arrow. Actually, I love anything Easton. They're always high quality arrows. So I should say none of my videos are sponsored by anything. I shoot Easton because I've shot a lot, and this is just the most consistent and what I'm most confident in using in the field. Okay, next up, we talk about my wife's hunting arrows. For short draw and low poundage, she's probably about a 24-inch draw roughly, and shooting about 30 pounds. 30 pounds is the limit in Hawaii to bow hunt, so it's at the ragged edge. But just going with it. It's I didn't do a whole lot of setting up or experimenting with her arrows because, you know, she's not at a proficiency level to really tell the difference between, you know, different type of veins or different type of setups, what's more accurate or not. So, you know, if you're that hunter that, you know, no matter what you shoot, your accuracy is going to be the same, then everything I said about testing veins and all that stuff, don't even worry about it. Probably I would say work on your proficiency first before even going down the rabbit hole of gear and all that stuff. But for the purposes of this, it's a super popular setup. It's just a simple high profile blazer vein. Everybody's got one of these. Probably you can buy them like this. It's a simple gold tip hunter arrow. I like gold tip arrows too. They're super tough arrows. I shoot Eastons right now, but they're pretty good. The offset on this is the same. It's just that, you know, if you can see, it's just that it's a little shorter vein, so you can't see as much angle around it, and with the fatter shaft you don't get as much wrapper on the shaft, so it looks like a less angle, but it's fine. What I would say, I didn't mention in the previous section, but some people asked about vein steering capability. This has been my experience that the height of the vein typically has more effect on its steering ability than the overall length of the vein. So, you know, with a high profile blazer, it can steer about the same kind of broadhead that like a 4-inch or maybe even a 5-inch typical parabolic vein can steer, even though it's only a 2-inch vein. And then when I go to like my AAE, you know, my lower profile AAE max vein, this vein just won't steer as big a broadhead as this taller blazer in my experience. So on the front, it's a 500 spine hunter. So I haven't weighed this out. I think it's about 280 to about 300 grains overall weight, so not a very heavy arrow. And you know, for the short draw people, you don't want to go too heavy because sometimes your pin gaps will grow. It'll be very difficult to shoot in between yardages, and it does depend what you're hunting. Again, in Hawaii we do a lot of spawn and stalking, and she wouldn't have the opportunity to, you know, move a sight or something like that. So arrow speed, you know, it kind of does play a role there. And we shoot small animals, goats and sheep. They're not even 100 pounds in some cases with the, you know, with the guts. They're not very big, so you can get away with a lighter arrow. But so where we are there, going to the front of the arrow. It's just a standard insert. I think the gold tip standard inserts are 16 grains and then or 12 grains, and it's a 2-blade Magnus Stinger 100 grain broadhead. for low poundage archers, and especially if you're shooting low poundage, low draw, it's going to be a low speed arrow. I'm going to assume maybe 200 feet a second. I have no idea. Pretty slow though. But you want a good two blade with that light arrow, because you're just going to get better penetration with a good two blade. You can do tests at home, you know, just take your broadheads and try to push them through a piece of plastic or a good cardboard or something. You can just tell a sleek two blade will take less pressure to push through than, you know, a three blade or even a mechanical head. So I use also a stinger for my traditional bow hunting setup, and gets tons of pass-throughs with that, sometimes just as good penetration as my compound bow. So it's pretty much the setup there for her. Like I said, it's going slow, so say if I were to try to shoot at my speed at 265 feet a second per se, you know, two blade like this, my 3.60 flex sesh might be enough to steer it. That AAE max vane, that'd be borderline in my opinion. But if I were to shoot a blazer with it, and I've shot, you know, stingers with my setup and a blazer out to 100 yards and group just fine. Just requires fine tuning and good form on the back end. But this has worked really well. She's only shot one animal with it, a goat, and goats are pretty thin skinned, but zipped right through, stuck in dirt behind it, and she did just fine with it. So some considerations for arrows, from my short draw to my wife's even smaller draw. Hopefully that helps some. And leave in the comments below if you guys want to see anything. We can talk about anything here. I spent a lot of time over the years kind of teaching myself, but also you know, getting burned, not making great shots and things, and now focusing heavily on competitive archery and all that stuff. And yeah, just a lot of knowledge and experience I've accrued over the years. I'd like to share that with you guys and hopefully make your archery, bow hunting, whatever experience better. So it's the video for today. Catch you guys in the next one. I'm gonna try to do this maybe weekly or something like that, and see you guys then. Aloha guys.